Hello everyone, and welcome to the Oasis ecosystem call number 2. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Matej, head of partnerships here at Oasis, and today we have a nice group of projects that are building on Oasis with me. So to start off, I'll basically give the floor to you guys to give a short intro about yourself, what you do at your respective projects, and then we're gonna dive a little bit deeper in what you guys are building. One thing before we start, I would say, community, anybody that's listening in, please do pose any questions that you have that you might come up with during the stream on YouTube or X, and we'll collect them and try to answer as many as possible. We already have a few from the community gathered together, so we're going to try to address those. Let's get started. So maybe we start with Nino, you here from Apelon, and then Colin and Daniel.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Nino, and I'm a Chief Product Officer at Apelon. To put it briefly, Apelon is a Web3 development platform primarily focused on building on Polkadot. What we do is basically we take existing Polkadot parachains and we abstract them away, providing developers with a very simple, known way of building from Web2 via APIs, SDK, CLI. We also have several solutions which are no code. Basically, you can create your NFT collection simply by clicking, or several other features by clicking. So our primary focus is to push the Web3 adoption via simplifying things.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Colin. Super excited to be here. Thanks, Matej, for the invite. I'm co-founder at Rail. So what we do at Rail is on-chain identity solutions. So our first solution launched 2 weeks ago, and that's a self-selective disclosure KYC NFT. So utilizing, Oasis is a great tech, which we can get into in a bit. You're able to perform a KYC process once and bring that anywhere, and you own the information. So it's pretty exciting, and happy to get into it.
Hey guys, great to be here. Thanks, Matej, for the invitation. I'm Daniel. I'm the founder of Rehide, and at Rehide, we basically have built a self-custody password manager and data marketplace. So essentially, you can encrypt anything you like inside an NFT, and you can then share it with other people as well as charge for it and many other things. We'll explore a bit later. And the way we can use Oasis to benefit is that we can actually store some of this data on-chain rather than having to store it off-chain. So yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, great to hear, even in the short overview, how Oasis privacy is utilized in many different ways to basically bring all that, needed data that's currently in the Web2 space in those silos and bring it to the more self-sovereign, self-custodial nature. So maybe, Nino, we can start with you. Can you guide us more into the product that you're building on Oasis? I think it's embedded wallets. We mentioned it a few times already. We had you also presented at our event at ETC, and I think it was very well received. But can you give us a bit more here on what you're doing, and also what are the kind of future prospects here?
Definitely. So coming from a product which is directly targeting developers, and for developers to be able to build within the Web3 context, we quickly figured out that if we are to provide our users, so the final users of our developers, with privacy and ownership, we need to be able to start off with identity or with some sort of wallet management, where we can provide users with 100% solution, which tells them these are your keys and no one else has access to it. But at the same time, we mitigate the friction created by blockchain with its immutability, where it's kind of tricky if your private key gets lost or you're unable to save the mnemonics very safely. We understood that until we tackle this solution and provide our developers with something that would allow them to onboard their users really fast, we will have this standstill. And if we look back into Web3, we can see that embedded wallets or account abstraction, everyone is now talking about it for quite some time. Because we all figured out that this is the way to go. This is the next step in Web3 adoption. So, of course, looking into different solutions out there, we quickly figured out that Oasis is OG in the space of end-to-end encryption, of completely trusted execution environments, or having nodes which are running on TEE. And of course, their capabilities of writing smart contracts there, and then again, using that in a very specific manner. So for us, coming from Polkadot, utilizing several parachains there, this was a perfect solution. So at the time, we approached Oasis and we kind of tackled this solution together. So right now, we are very close on publishing embedded wallets by Apelon/Oasis to the public, which essentially means when a user is entering a dApp utilizing this SDK, user can generate wallets basically on any chain using their passkey, which essentially again means that passkey is now becoming again a standard. We also see in Google articles how they are replacing their two-factor authentication with passkey. So there is a large support coming from passkey from Web 2 as well as Web 3. And Oasis in their stack is allowing us to very simply generate new wallets, new accounts, new blockchain accounts for these users, and to encrypt them within Oasis, completely self-custodial, and proceed by further using these functionalities also to process transactions. So if this all sounds very complicated, it means you're basically creating accounts like you would in Web 2, but in the background, a blockchain account is generated and you can immediately start using it, as well as you have an ability as a user to export your private keys at some point and import them into your favorite wallet. So I would say this is the solution that matches everything we were looking for. And also for the end, I can say when we compared and did market research of what everyone else is providing, we heard Base providing something similar. We know ThirdWeb is providing something similar. This one has a bleeding edge. It's basically very global. It's enough to generate one wallet per user, while everyone else is generating new wallets or accounts per dApp, which will, it's very questionable what will happen over the longer period of time. But definitely with Oasis, we are starting on the right foot here. So from our perspective, this is super exciting, and we believe that's the way how we'll be able to onboard several developers and, of course, users.
Yeah, thanks for that. I agree here in that a lot of solutions are popping up that seem similar to what you're building, right? But the underlying principle is slightly different, because with the ability to store the private key on chain, right, you're not doing those smart accounts that are per dApp or per chain, where you need to have multiples of those, right? But here you actually have the private key in your possession, and only the authentication methods that you approve are able to basically interact with that key. And I think one point that's nice here, right, that you, I think, will further develop on as well, since you're in the Polkadot ecosystem, because you are dealing with storing private keys, it's potentially possible to store other non-EVM private keys as well, right? So you can have a Bitcoin private key in there, you can have a Polkadot private key in there.
Yes, so having Oasis being so agnostic to the fact of what we're storing there, and this comes from the architecture itself. So this is what makes this tick. It's super helpful, right? So in our first step of providing some sort of identity or authentication service, we actually touched DIDs. So for those who are unfamiliar, DIDs are a W3C standard. And this standard is very great, but the thing it lacks is how you store those DIDs. So right now, most of the execution for these standards actually users go through attestation, credentials are generated, and they're just pushed towards the user as a JSON file. So if we're able to then store this somewhere, and Oasis is again proving to be the right path for this, we can probably engage with that standard and start delivering it within Web3 context. What it's worth mentioning here is also that some of the account abstraction embedded wallets, there are many different names right now popping up, and they're even coming from very trustworthy brands. It is worth checking out how they work in the background, because some of the solutions, they still keep a clone of the key in the background. So it's very questionable, is this completely self-custodial, etc. So I would say do your own research. And Oasis in this case is, we can say, 100% reliably self-custodial. So I think that's the most important thing for us, because we are entering this solution with zero compromise.
Exactly. And we have, compromises left and right, from financial exploits to data exploits, right? And to have that in mind from the start, I think gives a little bit more peace of mind that you are safer, at least, using these solutions and technology. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Nino, for now. I'll move to Daniel for a bit and ask him if he can share with us a little bit more in detail, what Rehide is doing with the password manager, with confidential notes, and how all this ties in together. Because I think you're using multiple encryption schemes, not just Oasis, to harden the security. So please share with us, Daniel, a little bit more.
Sure. So everything started when one of the major password managers got breached, I think 2 years ago now. And then I actually had quite a few, private keys and stuff in there. I thought there's got to be a better way. We now have a wallet. We all have a MetaMask or something similar, right? So we all have the ability to sign transactions. We can encrypt that essentially with that private key that we have inside our wallet. So the thinking was, why don't we use what we already have with a bit of a hardcore encryption and basically store that somewhere, right? So initially, the first version was just sign a message. It creates an encryption key in your browser. It encrypts the data, and then I was going to store that somewhere, right? So on an Excel spreadsheet or something. And then the idea came, well, how do we get that on chain? And the obvious answer at the time was, well, we can put it on IPFS, encrypt it a few times, and that will do it. But that is still, as good as it is for now, is still not 100%. So the end solution is using something like Oasis trusted executable environment, where there really is no way to get to it. Right? And not only it allows us to improve the security, but also allows us to more securely share secrets between wallets. Because the moment you sign something, only you can decrypt it. But we have different ways of encrypting data, where we could have different people that is allowed to decrypt it based on the smart contract, but only on a confidential environment. Right? So that's where we look into take advantage of Oasis Sapphire paradigm. And other than that, Rehide is able to store two-factor keys. We're also working on file encryption, so you can upload anything from an image, PDF, any file in between. And also, we have the ability to sell data. So if you are some sort of private alpha group and you would like to sell your next call, you can use Rehide to do that. So you can encrypt the call inside a node, and then you can charge people to read that. So that goes for anything that you can imagine that you might want to sell. So it can be, an article that you wrote or anything in between. So that's pretty much what Rehide does.
Yeah, I think paywalls and similar stuff is everywhere. So applying that permissionless access control, where if you pay, you automatically gain access. Not relying on any service or anything like that, right? Is a neat feature. And also, how you mentioned, right? We have a lot of passwords, 2FAs, all that. If you're able to store that somewhere secure and just manage, the security of one wallet, let's say, right? It's probably a lot easier than trying to, of course, there are solutions where, Apple offers that, what is the keychain or how they called it, right? And where you can store everything there, right? But there you need to, trust Apple that access is kept only to you, right? And I mean, yeah, backdoors are not prevented with that, right? So you never know what's happening in the back, really. But not singling out Apple, but yeah, we know how things work in the more traditional space. But here, I think, yeah, with having the option to fully decentralize the storage of that, right, and have truly access controls over who can access that, either just you or with the selective disclosure. I think we're going to go more into with Rail is one of the key things I think that these have over other privacy technologies, right? Where sometimes with certain technology you can just have that yes or no, while with the TE you can have that decryption, re-encryption for sharing specific data within a data set, right?
Exactly. I think even just being able to control who can really access something is not something that we can really control nowadays, because even using something like LastPass or 1Password, the fact that you can share that with someone by email is easily compromised, right? So being able to say this wallet must sign a message to then unlock something, that's really the only way you can make sure that only that person can do it. So imagine something where there's some sort of private key inside the smart contract, obviously encrypted by Oasis, probably double encrypted once on the device, on the user device, and then once again on Oasis, and only being able to access that private key if you comply with the ownership requirements. So you're going to be in the list, or you're going to be the owner of particular NFT in our case. Yeah.
For sure, yeah. Thank you, Neil, for that. And on the selective disclosure topic, I think, yeah, Colin, you're the best person to speak more about that and how you're utilizing that with Rail. Just maybe a deeper dive into Rail, and then how it utilizes the tech to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So Rail more broadly, and the way that we got started was basically just looking at the crypto space in general. And I think after the last cycle, everyone basically came to I think a collective agreement. You have to own your keys, you have to have self-custody, and bad actors in general need more ways to exit the space. So our solution, we really started focusing on compliance and identity, specifically in light of a number of regulatory changes, either with MiCA in Europe or FIT21 in the United States, or whatever else happens when they figure it out, right? And the first solution that we've made is a self-selective disclosure, KYC NFT, right? So what is that? That's sort of a lot of acronyms. It really is just a simple way of saying, it is a NFT that holds know your customer information, sort of the same as any other KYC process. Ours is enabled through Persona, right? So it's a very large KYC organization. It's well known. It's well backed, and in the sort of most important functionality, I think, is the self-selective disclosure feature, and the fact that it's enabled through Oasis, right? So we spent, I would say, 3 to 6 months playing around with other solutions and other ecosystems, and the architecture was just incredibly complicated, right? Like if we were trying to do this in a ZK fashion or anything else, like it just became, frankly, the tech for ZK wasn't there yet, or you were jumping through 100 hoops. For Oasis, it was incredibly simple because everything's encrypted, and then we enabled self-selective disclosure. So you own that data. You can disclose what specific information you're going to want to show to somebody, right? So you can only show somebody. I'm comfortable showing them my age. I'm not comfortable showing them where I'm from or anything else, and that's entirely enabled through the Oasis ecosystem. So we were super excited about that. And then just a bit more broadly for on-chain identity, we're super excited for the self-selective disclosure feature to have things like, an on-chain credit score or other data that needs to sort of, be shown. I think, owning that data is probably one of the most important things. I think a lot of other ecosystems aren't thinking about the compliance requirements if you're putting all this data on-chain. But Oasis has done a lot of that already. So it makes our life a lot easier. And, the importance of self-selective disclosure, I think, is probably going to be seen in the future.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I'm not too happy with how regulation turned in terms of, you know, what's putting what it demands from the space to do, right? But if we need to do it, I prefer solutions like these, right, where I can still have some control over, you know, my data. And I think at one point, you know, if you want to have like you know, credit scores on the collateralized stuff and something like that, right? You need that identity somewhere in the ecosystem, right? So yeah, I guess we can't completely avoid it if you want to progress and try to, you know, come to a level that current finance is able to operate at, right? Because there are some constraints, of course, but at the same time, yeah, I really want to push for keeping that original crypto ethos, you know, where there's no point in just copying the existing system, you know, onto a blockchain, right?
No, there's.
But
I totally agree. That's totally true. There's no point, and that's like the key thing that I think we face like every day, where, you know, it's like there's a sort of an original anarchism in crypto, which you actually is like a lot of the fun stuff, right? It's kind of like why we're here. We all believe in it, but also like, you know, the times are changing, right? You know, there is compliance happening, and, you know, it is, I think, a pretty critical moment to figure out, you know, what the future is actually going to look like if you're actually going to own your data, et cetera. So totally agreed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's better to build and show what's possible than to ask, you know, how to do it, right? And I think we need to be the ones that kind of try to, you know, set the pace, set the tempo, or the tone, or how would you call it, right? In terms of where solutions can go. Because it's interesting to like, not sure if you know Delta DAO from our community. They're building their first third-party paradigm, and they are dealing a lot with Web2 companies, right? And the European Commission, all that, right? And when they were showcasing their solution and how it utilizes on-chain privacy, folks at the European Commission were actually surprised that that's possible, right? So they were like, okay, so how far out is this? And they're like, well, this is in production for a year already, and they were actually pretty surprised. And I think we need to raise awareness that, you know, it is possible to have, you know, on-chain privacy that enables a lot of use cases to keep that original ethos of you know, self-sovereignty and self-custodial self-custody, right? Maybe you touched on, Colin, a good point, right? Building on Oasis, that it was fairly simple, right? Can you share a little bit more here, you know, in terms of what's crucial here? Was it the tooling, just that it's CVM compatible, or, you know, the general compute flexibility? What was the key thing when it comes to development?
Yeah, I think that there's really like three things when it comes to development. One, EVM compatible was good. Like that was just incredibly helpful for, you know, like I'm not going to be, you know, playing around on a lot of these other chains which don't have that, frankly. Number two was, yes, the tooling. Just, you know, the ecosystem has been built out a lot. Like, you guys have been around a lot longer than a lot of other chains. So, you know, oftentimes when you try to develop somewhere, you start developing and you realize, you know, one part of, you know, the ecosystem hasn't been built out yet, and you have to wait 6 months or something. That wasn't the case here. And then lastly, you know, end-to-end encryption was probably the key thing. Like, for a really long time, you know, we were wanting to sort of go down the ZK route, have a proving mechanism, sort of all these other things. And it's cool, but buzzwordy tech. But, like, you know, you guys have solved for that already, and you know, a really easy and simple way. So, you know, it made our overall architecture a lot more simple.
Yeah, and I think, Daniel, you were in the ZK space a bit more as well, right? And you saw that there are some hiccups there still that needs to be solved. I think quite a few developers in our community actually came from the ZK space. And I think even our Harry said it, you know, he was working on ZK before. He said, you know, I like things that work now, not a few years later. So, and I think it's true, right? ZK is great for certain things, right? Certain use cases. but it is still limited in when you need, you know, a bit more flexibility. Yeah, Daniel, maybe you can share your development experience as well in terms of can you compare any of that?
I think in our case, we actually don't use CK proofs as such. So for us, we use zero knowledge encryption, right? So we are currently doing that already at a client side, which basically means that no one can read what you're encrypting, not even the protocol, right? So I think people confuse it a little bit, but yeah, we don't actually use proofs. I think that might be more suitable for proving that you have or you've done something. In our case, we want you to be able to basically decrypt the actual underlying thing, right? So it's not just enough to say, I can decrypt it. That might be useful at some point, but our main use case is reading that encrypted stuff. So, yeah.
Oh, sorry
so
about that.
no, that's right. Many people, CK and CKP is just another letter at the end of it, and it makes all the difference. I get it. Yeah.
And Nino, for you guys coming from the Polkadot ecosystem, how was it for you with the EVM experience? Was it easier, harder? How was the development?
Yeah, so definitely EVM made things much easier. We're still, within Polkadot, we have several chains offering EVM solutions or EVM machine where you can typically deploy typical smart contracts. There is also a parallel world of Rust on Polkadot, which isn't so exciting for us, but we still, did a lot of work there. But yeah, comparing of how we, started with the DIDs, let's say a year and a half ago, and it took us a year and a half of searching and experimenting of what do we do with these DIDs now. We even went so far that we found a Web3 solution which provides TE on demand, and we were thinking about pushing those DIDs there from the client side, encrypting them, and then storing encrypted DIDs to IPFS. And then how would we, retrieve all this? So it would be a wild system to build. And it was breaking, like even in theory, it was breaking on several ends, right? So then we come in touch with you guys, with Oasis, and I think in 2 months we have this solution already working. So I can put, a relative number to the fact of what we had before and what we have now. It's like at least 5x of how fast we were able to build this. So yeah, and for me it was a no-brainer. I saw why I'm saying Oasis is OG, because the first article I read back in 2018, maybe 19, was Oasis together with Google Cloud providing those Silas confidential computing machines. And that's where I, had it in the back of my head of, these guys are doing this. And now it was just, we could see that the platform is mature. It was just a sprint through of utilizing what you guys have. So definitely I can say speed is there and simplicity is there, and the results are definitely there.
Yeah,
so yeah,
great to hear. We continuously listen to developer feedback and try to improve on the developer experience, because that's crucial, right? We're the infrastructure that others build on, and if the experience is not smooth, nobody's gonna develop on it. That's clear now.
I completely agree. So as a Web3 platform which relies on other parachains or app chains, what we do, we're in a position of aggregating those services, which means we are the ones who are integrating them either first or maybe 10th in the row. It's not many people go around today saying we're going to integrate this and that and that and that. Just let's see how it goes. So regarding developer experience, we can say this was a charm. We spent up to 10 months per single solution. I will not, single them out now, but that's not the point. The point is that you can see the maturity once you touch specific tech, and this was definitely true for Oasis.
Yeah, great to hear, Nino. I'm gonna stick with you because I'm gonna move to the questions from the community. So we're not gonna be too long, and I want to touch on a few here. So there's one question, and I think you touched on it a little bit already, but maybe you can go into more specifics. One question is, what steps are you taking to ensure there is minimal UX impact with the use of this embedded wallets compared to existing Web3 wallets? And are you gonna integrate like single sign-on solutions like Google for Google or any other single sign-on provider?
Yeah, so from our perspective, we are basically attacking this through minimum amount of steps. So what is the minimum amount of steps a user has to do in order to operate within crypto or within blockchain fully self-sovereign without any compromise? So let's say these are the parameters we put together, and then the UI is the output of following these parameters. So literally, like I said, right now, it is possible to spin up, so input your email, spin up a passkey, and within few seconds, you are ready to go. And this is not necessarily just a wallet. It opens your gateway into all the dApps that developers can build, which may result in you, needing to sign a transaction or to send some money or to receive some money. So this is the way we're approaching this. When we look at how others are doing this, so compared, let's say, our UX to other solutions out there, it is pretty much similar. As it is similar to log into Facebook or to Google. There are some standards, and it is hard to say, we're going to have 2 steps less than someone else, because there is a minimum of what you have to do. But we can definitely say that what we have built is as close to Web2 onboarding as it's technically possible to get. I can stand behind this, definitely. And yeah, regarding single sign-on, etc. So what we are testing right now and trying to build is only an email login with 3 shards, but this is still in the development. And the question is, like, do we want to support then the single sign-ons from Google, etc.? What is going to happen with the audiences who are now entering Web3? Because if you are chasing this self-sovereign privacy, it is also a question of, where do you keep your email? So I'm not blindly, thinking everyone will hop off the Google train in the next few years, but definitely this question has to be raised from every user by themselves. Like, even if we abstract away the wallets and give you self-sovereignty there, if you are exchanging your daily emails, a question should be asked by yourself, like, is this really the way to go? And are we really, continuing to feed the monster? And not saying Google is monster. I'm still using Google to some extent, and they do a great job there. But it's impossible to be self-sovereign and own your data as long as you're hooked to these services, which are free of charge. So yeah,
for sure. I mean, the experience is so smooth that it's hard to get out of it, right? So you can be in a Google bubble or an Apple bubble, right? That because there's one entity that can handle all of that. The experience is so seamless that people, once you try to let's say fragment a little bit, where you store data, where you store your email, where's your search history, right? Then it takes a little bit of more effort and work to get all of that going. But I do agree with you that maybe if you try to simplify it too much, right, then you didn't do any difference, right? So if you support like single sign-on, that basically you're giving it back to the custody to almost by proxy to Google, right?
Yes, it is hard to predict, how the next Web3 adoption will happen. What will this audience expect? We aren't here to deny them, a specific service. If this will kind of gravitate towards standards, and if we can say at least the wallet is self-sovereign, I think it's a good compromise. But definitely, the reason why we are still kind of lagging behind regarding the user experience is the fact that Google has a 20-year head start. They were optimizing their ecosystem and how the services play together and how to get us hooked for 20 plus years. So, and we are, now trying to solve the essential part of blockchain, which are the wallets. So this can kind of pinpoint that we're still quite early. But again, people who created all these experiences are now entering Web3, so we might get a boost there. I'm definitely optimistic regarding next few years and Web3 adoption.
Yeah, and I think wallets are one of the crucial steps here, because the biggest drop-off rate is for dApps is probably when you need to connect your wallet, and if you don't have MetaMask or Brave or any other wallet, right? To set up that for a novice user, it's daunting, and they'll just close the window, right? So if you can solve for that problem, it's a big step forward.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. There's one question for Colin, where it's what very, very direct. What can users expect, and is Rail any different than other KYC solutions?
Good question. No, I like the directness. What can users expect? Well, it's live, so go check it out. It's a 30-second KYC process. So in many ways, like, we aren't the KYC provider, Persona is. So, you've probably used a Persona KYC process in the past on some other platform, like, Stripe or Reddit or all these other places use Persona. It's 30 seconds, right? It's really simple. You show a driver's license, passport, scan your face, right? And to the user, I don't want it to be that different at all, in fact, because this is pretty important information. We're trying to be compliant. I don't want to do, any sort of weird NFC chip stuff, or sort of, all these other things that you see across blockchain identity solutions. Like, I want this to be trusted and easy to use. But the key thing is here, you do it once and then you're done. You don't have to do it again. And you can go across the ecosystem ideally. And if people are partnered with us, you're good to go. And along the way, hopefully you're accruing things like reputation, et cetera, which we're wanting to add. When it comes to the back end and how we're different than everyone else, I think that's like incredibly critical, right? So, here you own your data, you aren't giving it to other people. Here it's self-selective disclosure, so you can show specifically what you want to who you want. The other cool things which we've enabled are, like, you can set it automatically to disclose certain things. So, if you're comfortable with just showing citizenship, you can automatically disclose that to certain people, but other things you don't have to. And then I would say, sort of looking across the blockchain identity ecosystem more broadly, how we stand out. I think, I've touched on it before, but end-to-end encryption is pretty important. I think a lot of blockchain identity people really haven't thought about what MiCA and GDPR really means in the EU. And if you want to have an operative, solution in the EU that, is going to work both with regulators and how people want to act. And then just lastly, when it comes to the ability to, like, have a functional KYC process that's ready to use, like, ours is there. So, I think a lot of blockchain identity people have sort of talked about this broadly, but, ours is functional, it's ready to use. So, yeah, I would encourage people to go check it out.
One question I would have here is, when Persona is doing the KYC, are they just verifying the data and then you store it, or they store the data as well, so they duplicate it?
Yeah, so Persona has to store the KYC data on their end, but the important thing here is, like, the way that we're complying with GDPR is actually, I think, really interesting, right? Because Persona is the KYC provider, is, doing that, 30-second KYC process. Yes, they are storing the data on their end, but it's because it's encrypted and because of the passkey solution that we're essentially enabling, like, they are not going to be able to identify your wallet as the one that has that key. Only we, as the credential issuer, are going to have that. And then the way that the encryption is working is, of course, you're the one who then owns the passkey, essentially, right? So we're fitting both, you owning your keys, you owning your information, while also being GDPR compliant. So it's actually a pretty hard bridge to cross, because, you aren't going to just stick all, you can't stick everybody's information just into an NFT, right? Like, there's still certain things that you have to do.
Yeah, I think GDPR is quite problematic because I don't think it was built with any thought, of how
No.
blockchains operate, and
Yeah.
I think I hope that there will be some evolution of GDPR because trying to stick, what we're doing into that regulation is, as you said, it's a hard bridge to cross, right?
Yeah. So like a perfect example is like the right to forget, right?
Exactly.
So on the blockchain, in fact, it's all about not forgetting things because it's a blockchain and it's historically permanent, ideally. While the right to forget actually means, if a user wants their information gone, they're allowed to, request that you delete that information, right? So I think our solution is actually one of the few that can fit that key because, you can easily say, okay, I'm done with this NFT, guys. I'm never going to use it again. And I turn the self-selective disclosure, et cetera, off, so you own it. And it actually bridges that chasm in a pretty elegant way. But yeah, it's like you have to deal with it in some manner.
Yeah, exactly. And Daniel, for you, I have a question that touches on what you mentioned to me before at my ZKP slip. So the question is, we all have heard about the potential robust price guarantees and ZKPs combined. How will the smart price Oasis be used with Rehide solutions, and how will benefit the end users? Also, is the collaboration mainly for the developers for now, or is there use cases for end users as well?
Yeah, so the first part of the question, right? So how will it benefit users? I think it comes down to having the certainty that the data is actually encrypted not only on your device but also on the end at rest. So you got full encryption end to end, but then also at rest. That's what Oasis brings to the table, right? So again, zero knowledge encryption basically is a fancy way of saying no one has any knowledge except for that person who's encrypting it, right? And has the encryption key. So I think combining what we have already built using multiple encryption mechanisms, including some of the strongest password management and best practices, and also algorithms, including Argon 2, which those who are more technical might be familiar with. We use several combination of algorithms, and then we have the Oasis layer, right? So it's almost like it kind of just brings it all full circle, and that's what I guess brings the benefit to the user, having higher security. And also the biggest thing is being able to share. As I said before, sharing things that are encrypted is quite hard, and I always question anything that is meant to be encrypted and shared, because if it's that easy to share, it's not that secure. So solving that problem actually requires a trustless and confidential environment like Oasis. So once we finally implement that, there'll be a major improvement in UX and also security. And when it comes to developers and users, our solution right now is user-centric, but we are working on an encryption SDK that other projects can actually use to build on top of what we have already built. So they can then leverage Oasis, our SDK, to basically build anything they want. So you can think of tickets to an event or anything inside a game, anything you can think of. So that's what is coming later in the year. But the first thing is to focus on the user and try to give those services to the everyday person and give them an alternative to clicking save password on your browser, which is probably not very safe when you think about how easy it is for someone to retrieve that, right? Once you leave your computer for 2 seconds, and all it takes is 2 clicks and you can see your password. So yeah, it's time to think about how you're storing your passwords, and and we're here to help.
Yeah, I see you're really focused on the defense in depth, making sure that it's just you and just the people that you allow to. And I do agree, right? If it's very simple to share, then yeah, somebody has to have some insight there to be able to share it forward. Yeah. So good to see progress there. And I think having these solutions be more crypto native will also help us, because if you look at everybody in crypto is very reliant on 2FA, it's 2FA for all exchange accounts, all of that, right? But we're still using, all the legacy tooling for that. So yeah, to have something more crypto native will definitely be a benefit here, I think, for everyone. I don't want to to cross an hour, so we're 45 minutes in, but maybe just if you can share a little bit with the community. I mean, if there's any teaser, any alpha you can share with the community when it comes to your projects and what's going to be happening in this half a year, that would be great. So maybe we can start with you, Colin, now first, and then and then Daniel.
Yeah. So look, the KYC solution's live, so come use it. When it comes to other things, we're going to be rolling out a quest in the next couple of weeks to really get users, some proper incentives to actually, engage with this solution. And then more broadly, we've been thinking about the on-chain identity space. So doing things like reputation, credit scoring, etc. So, once you mint your NFT, you're able to do more than just KYC with it. So, looking towards that too.
Awesome. Nino, what are plans for you guys, even beyond maybe embedded wallets? Because I know you're.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely can say that embedded wallets are probably the feature of the year on Epilon, not just because they are very cool and important at this point in time, but because, like I said initially, I believe that's the stone we need to roll to get this snowball effect of adoption, and that's the main reason we are here. But generally speaking, Epilon now, after 2 years, has several services already abstracted away. We also, besides the services which are very a la carte and driven towards developers, are offering pre-built solutions, which are neat little packages of specific use cases that anyone can spin up and immediately start executing something on chain. So we're saying that we're calling this like Web2 logic with Web3 results. And we're going to be expanding on those. So we want to be one-stop shop for all the developers. We want to have RPCs, we want to have querying, we already have storage, hosting, authentication, etc. And we are also expanding on the amount of smart contracts we offer out of the box with the synergy of all other services. So to bring all this together into a specific SDK, and then the next step is empowering our Flutter SDK. So I would say this is our next big focus, is mobile dApp development. It has to happen. We're still doing a lot of things on desktop computers, and I don't know why. To be honest, blockchain has to move strongly into mobile, and there are too many dApps which are exclusive just for desktop, and this has to change. So
yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the experience, even when you're connecting your MetaMask in your mobile browser, right? If you don't open it within MetaMask, it's really problematic. It's not opening the right windows at the right time. So you're waiting on one end, then you're waiting on the next one. So it's definitely we are still tied a little bit more to the desktop environment, right? But hopefully there can be a big shift, because I think if you look at centralized exchanges and their mobile apps, right? Easy to use, right? But of course, because it's a normal Web2 app, right?
Exactly. And right now, I would say, infrastructure is there. We are ready, like globally speaking, if we look at Web3 infrastructure, we are ready, and it's time for the application layer to start blossoming. And we need to see more use cases right now. I think that should be our primary focus collectively. If we want to make this happen, this has to be like highest priority.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Nino. Daniel, what's in stores for vHive for H2 of 2024?
You'll be happy to hear that we are working on a mobile app as well. So we are contributing towards the mobile ecosystem. Actually, I was at an event the other day, and someone was saying how they don't use crypto on the phone, but then they trust the computer fully. So I was a bit confused. I think there's a bit of a misconception of what's secure. And I think the answer that I have in my head is, if it's actually running on your operating system directly, it's probably more secure than a little extension on your browser, which, another extension could potentially do something. I don't know. I mean, it's not that easy, right? But yeah, so we are looking at a mobile solution. So if you think about a password manager, your passwords need to come with you wherever you go, right? So we're working on the browser extension as well as the mobile apps. So that's in store, but the closest thing to launch will probably be the NFT collection that will give us lifetime access. So we've gone through a few different hoops, and we are finally settling on a style and something will be dropping very soon. So that's one thing, and then the integration with Oasis probably will be done by the end of the quarter, hopefully a lot sooner. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And I think you mean your password access should go with you. The passwords are staying where they are, right, on the blockchain or not?
Well, they should come with you, right? You can't just leave them at your desktop. You should have them on your mobile app and everywhere you go. So we all love a bit of an autofill, you know.
Yeah,
Just gotta
exactly.
gotta make sure it's secure. That's all.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. I'm really enjoying the conversation, but yeah, I think we're just at the right time to wrap it up. So if you guys have any closing thoughts that you want to share with the audience.
My thought was how easy it has been to work with Oasis, not only Sapphire, the protocol, but also the team has been great. So any developers that are thinking of jumping on board, I'll definitely say don't think about it too much. And the fact that it's Solidity and it's EVM compatible is a no-brainer, really.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, I would echo the exact same thing. I've had a great time being a part of the Oasis ecosystem. The whole team has been incredibly helpful, hands-on with us, and from end to end, it's been a great experience. So super excited for what's to come.
Thanks, Colin, for that.
Yeah, I would use this opportunity to make a little call out to anyone out there who is going through either embedded wallets or similar experience. To get back to us. We have Colin and Daniel here and myself who are tackling similar issues. And if we are not getting good feedback or users who are trying this out and communicating, this could be better, I didn't understand that, then we are completely blind. So I would engage with anyone listening and familiar with any of our services, get back to us, get us suggestions and everything else. Like I said, I believe the tech is there, but now we need to focus on the application layer, which can only happen if we have a dialogue with our users. So yeah, but otherwise, Oasis is really great. We are super happy to be there and to host our solution there.
Thank you, guys. And full disclosure, this was not paid for, all the all the endorsement, but I'm just happy to hear that we are doing a good job, that you're happy with the experience interacting with the network, with the foundation, so we will keep on trying to improve on that, and for us feedback is also crucial. So yeah, that's why we want to engage, be very hands-on with our developer community, with the projects that are building on us. So yeah, I think we're going to do more of this in the future as well, more ecosystem calls. So have you back on, after a little bit, so you can share where things stand, what new are you up to. But for now, yeah, I'd just like to thank you guys for joining me here. Also, thank you to the whole audience, for tuning in. For me, it was a good one. Would love to go for another half hour, but yeah, I think today it's enough. And yeah, everybody enjoy your Thursday, and see you next time.
Thank you, Matej. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. See you next time.